Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you are. Welcome to the webinar on RBA with Splunk Enterprise Security. So I'm trying to share my screen. I hope my screen is visible. Okay, so yeah, my name is Murugan. I'll be a speaker today. I have over 10 years of experience with Splunk and SIEM. I am an accredited Splunk Professional Service Consultant. I also specialize in log management, AI ops, SIM, of course, and incident response. I've worked with major customers across the globe, across sectors such as financial services and education. So I have a good background in Splunk, and I think I'll be able to give you some valuable information today. Uh, Actually, before we proceed, I think it would be good to do our first poll. So the first poll, with this poll, I'm just trying to understand the background of the participants. So we'd like to understand, which SIEM tool you are most familiar with. Is it Splunk, QRadar, Sentinel, Logarithm, Sumo etc.? So if you could just take a few seconds to, input your options, that would be great. That will help me. Give it a few seconds. Okay, I'm seeing mostly Splunk, some Microsoft Sentinel, and actually one Microsoft Sentinel and one Synology. Right, thank you very much for your inputs. Let me actually close this. So what are we planning on talking about today? So we want to talk about the biggest challenge that SIEM users face today, which is large alert volumes, alert fatigue caused by the large alert volume for the SOC teams today, and how RBA is a solution for that problem, and how Splunk has implemented RBA and how Splunk stands out from other tools. And then we also have a promo for you. So I can see most of you are not using Splunk, so this may be of interest to you. So please hold on until we get there. So the agenda quickly again. We're going to talk about the biggest challenge, which is alert fatigue. We're going to talk about RBA as a framework and how RBA works in Splunk. And then we'll do a quick demo on Splunk to see how RBA makes it better for SOC analysts, and then we'll talk about more Splunk RBA and then the current offers. So the challenge, alert fatigue. So traditionally, when a customer, when an organization is using an SIEM, so it has a rules engine. You have log sources sending its logs. You would have installed an agent or something like a forwarder installed on the source servers or your devices to collect the logs and then forward it to your SIEM platform. And then the SIEM platform would have this rules engine would do some sort of pattern matching, and whatever matches you have would get converted into alerts, and those alerts would be would be displayed by the SIEM. So the pattern matching has static, will almost always have static severity and static impact related settings. In some cases, there is dynamic severity and impact settings, but they are not really dynamic, right? So based on small certain conditions, you would be able to change it, but it's not really dynamic. It wouldn't be able to adapt when there is a large volume of alerts. So this traditional way of alerting, right, like one-to-one type of alerting, if there's a rule that if there's a pattern match for a particular rule, that would get created as an alert. So I call it one-to-one mapping. So when we do this one-to-one mapping, it works well for environments where the alert volume is low. When the alert volume is very high, the SOC analyst will actually struggle to process all of the alerts, to go through all of the alerts, triage all the alerts, and then start investigating all of these alerts. So it's a very big challenge for the SOC analyst to address all the alerts. To give you an example, right? So for a SOC analyst, when he logs in, he would already see this alert, right? Because this alert is at 6:55 a.m. So when he logs into the system, he would already see this alert for, with a low priority, potential spear phishing observed. And then around 7 o'clock, there would also be another alert. This is just assuming that there's another alert for another potential spear phishing attempt. And then another alert for user provisioning. So as his day progresses, he would see all of these low and medium priority alerts, and suddenly in between there would be one critical alert. So apart from these alerts, there will also be other alerts in the system that the analyst is focused on. So probably a critical alert that the analyst is focused on, and he's really not looking at these alerts. And then suddenly there's a critical alert say, for example, AWS, AC has opened up for all access. So when he sees this alert, the attention of the SOC analyst immediately goes to this alert, and he would start investigating these alerts. And then there could be follow-on alerts of other severities, for example, like these low and medium severity. But he's not really going to be looking at these alerts. So he'd be looking only at that severe alert with the critical severity, because that has, because that's critical, right? So he would immediately start looking into that alert, and he would start spending his time investigating these alerts. All the while, he would be missing all of these other alerts. He would not be focusing on all of these alerts. But the reality is, all these alerts could be related. They could be interrelated, and could, when looked at it together, could give a different perspective of what's happening in the environment. So because of the huge volume of alerts, SOC analysts generally tend to focus only on the high and the critical severity alerts, thereby they missing low and medium severity alerts. So that is the biggest challenge that SOC teams face today. And this screenshot is actually an example of an environment where, for the last 24 hours, there's like 22,000, almost 23,000 alerts. So I want to focus your attention to this area of the screen where there is an urgency chart. If you could see here, the medium and the low severity is the major, contributes to the major volume of the alerts. The high and the critical is the small volume of alert. It's a very small volume. Oftentimes, malicious alerts are grouped under medium and low severity. So if the SOC analyst is focused only on the high and the critical severity alerts, because when there are 22,000 alerts in a day, it's logical for the SOC analyst to look only at the high and the critical severity ones, right? So he'll be missing the truly malicious alerts, which are currently in medium and low severity. So the alert volume is, the overwhelming alert volume is really the challenge today. Almost 40% of the organizations who are SIEM users receive 10,000 plus alerts per day, and almost 50% of them are false positive. So what's really happening is that the SOC analysts are spending their time trying to identify false positives, and they tag the alerts as false positives. So they spend almost their entire day tagging false positives rather than investigating the truly malicious alerts. Also, the other thing is, when there is a high volume of alert, so it will be very difficult for the analyst to figure out the context. So in the previous example that I spoke about, so some alerts came early in the morning, some alerts came late in the evening, and and then the critical alert happened in the afternoon, right? So it's very difficult for the analyst to look at the alerts that are being generated across the timeline and figure out the context by himself, because it's a small dashboard view, and it makes it very difficult for the analyst to figure out the relationship between all these different alerts. And then finally, this one is tied to the previous challenges, the increased response time. So because the analyst is focused on other things and not really looking at truly malicious alerts, so the response time, so by the time when he gets to the truly malicious alerts, it's already too late. The response time is, is increased. So RBA is the solution to this alert fatigue, and users across different SIEM platforms have started implementing RBA. So how does RBA really work, right? So it's more or less the same thing, but there is an additional layer that sits on top of the rules engine, right? So this is actually generic RBA. So logs come in, your rules engine does the pattern matching, and additionally, it uses the asset priority, identity priority, depending on what asset or identity is involved in that particular alert. And then it also uses, and it does something called the risk scoring. So based on these conditions, priority, asset and identity priority, and other condition, it comes up with a risk score, tags the risk score with that finding, and then sends it as an alert. So when this kind of tagging happens, when there is risk scoring happening, so what will happen is the alerts with the highest risk score will start floating to the top. So when it starts floating to the top, it makes it easier for the analyst to focus. So it helps them prioritize and manage the security alerts on the potential risk. So it helps them focus on the most critical threats for the different assets and identities in the environment. So the key advantages using risk-based analytics is, prioritization of threats. So because we add a risk score to it, security teams now can start looking at, threats that have the highest risk score. So thereby it reduces the alert fatigue. So they look at the alerts only, only at alerts that have the highest risk score, and they would, can easily, ignore low risk events. And so because we do, the risk scoring, it improves the accuracy to some extent. But keep in mind, this is generic RBA. This is what every other tool does. So Splunk does it slightly differently. So Splunk's RBA is actually a customizable framework. Other tools provide it as a feature and not really as a framework that you can customize. So those features would have very little customization when it comes to risk scoring. We can set up conditions to increase or decrease risk scores, but it does not allow the customization that Splunk offers. And also Splunk, gives us an implementation methodology. So it gives us stages in which we have to approach it. It guides us with this implementation methodology of how we should be implementing it for for an effective RBA. So it also gives us, Splunk also gives us this customizable risk factors. So these are conditions based on which we can increase or even decrease a risk score. So other tools would, only give you a way to increase the risk score, but not decrease the risk score. So, but Splunk will give you both. And then Splunk also allows you to group your risk events and provides a context with a timeline view of events. So basically, multiple events are grouped as one single event, thereby it reduces your alert volume. So other tools would simply just add a risk, a risk score to your existing detections, to your existing alerts, and it would float the ones with the highest risk to the top. But Splunk takes it even further. It groups all of these events into a single incident and gives us the entire context. So the analyst really does not have to go into the history of the alerts, put the alerts on a timeline view and see what's going on. So in Splunk, this timeline is readily available for the SOC analyst. So he'll be able to, once he goes into the alert itself, he'll be able to see the picture, see the context, get the context immediately. So we'll see that quickly in a demo in some time. Splunk also, has a dedicated community for advancing RBA. Frankly, other tools do not have such a community. A lot of Splunk professionals are active members of this community who work towards improving RBA. And also Splunk maintains a library of RBA ready security content. So the content that they have in this library is ready for RBA. So not a lot of effort is required to design it. So, almost everything is done by Splunk RBA. So we just have to take it and tune it to our requirement and implement it. So Splunk RBA differs slightly from other tools. So how it does is you have your log sources sending your data to your rules engine. So rules engines in Splunk is the correlation searches. So these correlation searches, when they run, they annotate its findings, they annotate its matches with MITRE ATT&CK and also other security frameworks. So it adds these details to the detections, and then it calculates a risk score and then sends the events as risk events to a risk index. It does not create it directly as an alert. So the details, so the findings from the rules engine goes into the risk index as risk events. Now the risk index, I mean, there's a risk data model that sits on top of the risk index. Just a second, let me have a sip of water. So Splunk has a risk data model that sits on top of this risk index, and it uses the risk factor. So the risk factor is a setting in Splunk SIEM that allows us to dynamically modify the risk score. So when the risk events come into the risk index, they already have the risk object and priority details. They have a risk message saying what the detection is all about. And then the risk data model sits on top of the risk index and then calculates a risk score using the risk factors. Now there is another layer called the risk incident rule. So the risk incident rule basically looks into the risk events through the data model, and then it groups all of those events by the risk objects. So the risk objects can be an asset or an identity or anything for that matter. It will group those events and send it as alerts to the as risk incidents. So the final alert is basically a grouped set of events that goes into your alerts index. So risk-based alerting really works by taking advantage of assets and identities and also the MITRE framework. So it aggregates these low fidelity security events, meaning alerts could be of different severities, right? Low, medium, high, etc. So risk-based analytics really, excels in finding out the truly malicious events by looking at these low fidelity alerts, and then by combining them, it improves the fidelity of the alerts. It improves the true positiveness of the alerts, and then by doing so, it also reduces the alert volume. And then we have the risk factors. The risk factors would help us calculate a better dynamic risk score. It is not static as in other tools. So it would dynamically increase or decrease it would help dynamically increase or decrease the risk score. And then while the grouping happens, so there is a timeline view within the Splunk dashboards that would, help the analyst really understand what's going on when he takes a look at one of these alerts. So as and when the analyst scrolls through the alert, he would be able to get the entire context as to what's happening, and he would be able to make a much better informed decision immediately. So Splunk's RBA, just to give you an example of how it works in action is, so in our previous example, we saw the alerts across different times during the day. So this is a very similar example. So there is an alert at 6:55 a.m. and it carries a risk score of 10. And then at 6:58, there is another alert which carries a risk score of 15, etc. So at 7:03, there's another alert. And in the afternoon, there are another, series of alerts that come in. So all these, instead of getting converted as individual alerts, Splunk will convert them as risk events, as I showed you in the previous slides. Now, the risk incident rule, this is an out-of-box rule that is already available in Splunk. So this risk incident rule will combine all of this. So if these detections are related to a particular object, when I say object, I mean a server or an identity. If these are related to a particular object, this rule will combine all of these detections by that object, and it will check whether its cumulative score is greater than 100. So this threshold is adjustable. We can adjust it as per the environment's requirement. So by default, it does it for 100. I mean, the threshold is set to 100. So it checks whether, over the period of the entire day, it checks whether the score has gone beyond 100. If the score has gone beyond 100 for a particular object, it combines all of those events and then it sends it to, the alerts index. it sends it as a notable or an incident. So what happens is all of these, when combined together, gives the analyst a good picture of what has happened, right? So when we plot it across the kill chain view of the MITRE framework, we'll be able to see what's happening in the environment, whether the particular object, or whether it is an identity, or whether it's a system, whether it's been really compromised or not, or whether it's in the process of getting compromised. So that's how Splunk's RBA works. It works by grouping that. So we'll go through a quick demo, and then we'll see how RBA works, you know, in action. So maybe I need to share my screen again. So let me stop sharing and share my entire screen. So this is a Splunk enterprise security environment, and the dashboard that you're looking at is the main dashboard, which is the security posture dashboard. Let me reload it again. Okay. Okay, so we're not going to go into the details of this dashboard. So this dashboard is basically the main dashboard of enterprise security. So kind of like an executive view that SOC teams would generally put it up on a big screen. So we are going to go into the next tab, which is the incident review tab. So this is the tab where the incident management feature of Splunk Enterprise Security is available. So we're looking at all of the alerts in Splunk Enterprise Security. So this particular environment has both RBA enabled alerts and also the regular alerts. So when I say regular alerts, I mean the alerts that get converted. I mean the detections that get converted as alerts directly instead of going into the risk index. So there are two types of notables. So notables is an incident in Splunk. So there are two types. So one is a regular incident or a regular notable, and the other is the risk notable. So I'm going to filter down to the risk notables so that we can take a look at one of them and uh, see the details of it basically and how it can help a SOC analyst. Okay. So I'm going to focus on the first one. The first one is for an object uh, called Fyodor at splunktshirt.company.com. So I can see that the risk score is at 1024. It has not populated the risk events yet. So maybe we'll take another one. So we can take a look at this one, the system for Windows host. So we can see that the risk score for this one is pretty high, 10,000, and then the number of risk events is 288. So this basically tells us that 288 individual alerts have already been combined by this particular rule, right? And this rule is basically looking for attack tactic and threshold over the period of last 7 days, right? So basically, it has looked at the risk events inside the risk index for the last 7 days for this particular object, which is a system, and it is checking for an attack threshold, which meaning a MITRE attack threshold. It is checking the different techniques that it has been that has been detected for this particular object, and it has grouped them. So let's take a look at the details of this one. So if you can see, we are immediately presented with a MITRE view. So we can see the kill chain. So we can see detections under, so it's highlighting detections under execution. It's highlighting detections under defense evasion, credential access, and then there is exfiltration as well. So just by looking at this view, just because we're seeing detections under exfiltration, SOC analyst can immediately understand that the system is probably already compromised because data is being actively taken out, right? Exfiltration means data being taken out of the system. Right? If we scroll down, we can see all the different detections, for this particular, all the different individual detections for this particular host. So this is the risk object, and this is all the detections that has been captured by Splunk. and we can see the total number of risk events, the cumulative risk score, etc. And then we can see additional, details about the event itself. Now I can click on this risk events, and when I do so, it will pop up a view. So this is a timeline view. I'll wait for it to load. So this is a timeline view, so I can zoom into this timeline. Oops. So this is actually showing us for a very broad time range. So I'll have to zoom in quite a bit. Okay. So basically, it is giving us a timeline view of all the individual, detections on this view. So maybe I'll take let me see if there's another example, another good example that I can choose. Maybe this one. So as you can see, as I zoom in, just because it's showing us in a compressed form, all the detections looks as though it is at the same time, but actually it's at different time intervals. So we can actually see here by highlighting this. This one is particular. This one is for Windows execution arbitrary command with the MS DT rule. This one was detected at 4:12 p.m. The next one is also at 4:12 p.m. So maybe I can highlight another one. Okay. So this is actually a demo system. So in a real world scenario, you would see all the detections across the timeline, thereby giving a picture of which event happened at what time. And this is actually a powerful view that will help the SOC analyst easily, get the context of what's going on in the environment. And then we also have, if you go down below, we have all the individual, risk events along with their risk scores and their annotations. Up at the top, we'll have details about the risk object itself. So if asset and identity framework is configured, so this particular object is not found in the asset and identities framework. If there is an object that was detected, part of the asset and identity framework, it would populate all the details about that uh, asset. For example, the location, the owner information, etc. Right? Let me reload this and try to come back. So we also have another risk analysis dashboard in Splunk. So what we can do is, this is an out-of-box dashboard. So we can take one of the risk objects. Um, we can take one of the risk objects. I'd already copied a risk object. So let me paste that risk object. So the risk object is a user. So we can filter down the details to a particular risk object and load this dashboard to see what are the details, right? For example, this particular object has currently cumulative risk score of more than 12,000. The individual detection, the source count means the individual rules that found a malicious detection is 4, etc. And then we can also see a bifurcation by the annotations. So Splunk provides this out-of-box dashboard that we can leverage. So, and Splunk also encourages us to take this as a template and then add additional panels to this according to our requirement. So we can see all the details about the risk modifiers, annotations. We can see the modifiers over time, the risk scores over time, to see how the object from time to time, how it went from a low risk to a high risk. Okay. Okay, so one more feature that I wanted to show you all is the risk factor. So risk factor in Splunk is this particular view. So it allows us to set up specific conditions. For example, for the first condition, it says the name of the condition is admin user. So the condition really is if the user category, if there is a field in the data called user category, and if it matches privileged if it has a value of privilege, so then increase the score by a factor of 1.5. So the operation is multiplication. So it allows us to do addition or multiplication, and it gives us an option to specify a factor. So it can take decimal values. So really with this, we'll be able to dynamically increase or decrease the risk score. So for example, if the user category is a guest user or an L1 user, and if we think that the score really needs to be brought down, so we can do a multiplication and we can have a factor of 0.25, and thereby reducing the we can reduce the overall risk score. So this is risk factors. Yeah. So and then coming back to the main incident review dashboard. So the main dashboard itself, this incident review dashboard allows us to see all of the information in a single pane. So thereby it gives the analyst the context. So the analyst doesn't really have to go across the time range. It doesn't have to go in search for the individual events to get the context. So the context for him is readily available just as he expands this notable event. Okay. All right. Coming back to Splunk. Coming back to the slides again, Splunk RBA. So Splunk by default has these two grouping rules. So as I said, the attack tactic threshold, it looks over a period of 7 days, and the threshold here is 3. So it will look for attack tactics of more, and if it identifies that for a particular object, if there are more than 3 attack tactics detected, then it would combine all of the findings and it would create it as a single alert. And then risk threshold exceeded for the object over a 24-hour period. So this basically will check the sum of the risk score for all the detections over a 24-hour period. And if it is greater than 100, it would then convert it as an alert. So there is a timeline view. As I said, in the real world scenario, you would be able to see all the detections spread across the timeline, thereby giving the context to a SOC analyst, uh, helping him understand what happened to that particular object from start to end. Risk factors, as I just showcased, so these factors will allow us to dynamically increase or decrease the risk score for a particular object, and the object can be anything. It can be a system, an identity, or anything for that matter. So as I mentioned earlier, Splunk provides not only, provides the feature as a framework, it helps us or it guides us with the methodology. So it recommends 4 steps for an effective RBA implementation. At level 1, it's where we do a content strategy session where we look into the environment data and we identify the appropriate rules for the environment, fine tune the rules to make sure that the rules themselves are not generating false positives. So that is level 1. And once we have identified the rules, the level 2 is to do RBA implementation. So Splunk has readily available RBA library, so a lot of information is already available. So we need to leverage that information and implement RBA in our environment. So basically, we identify risk score for these individual rules, and then we configure those rules to send send its detections to the risk index. At level 3, We look at all the detections and then we see what additional things needs to be set up, for example, dashboards and then the update response process. So once we see an RBA alert, what do we do with that RBA alert? How do we respond to that RBA alert? Because it's not one detection, it's multiple detections combined into a single RBA alert. So develop a process around for those kind of alerts. And then level 4 is to put them into production. So Splunk says that RBA is an iterative process. So meaning you do step 1 to step 4, and then you come back to step 1 again, and you continuously keep improving your rules by reducing your false positives. So false positive reduction must always happen here at this level so that your risk events that go into the risk index are avoids those false positives. Thereby, the end result would be, whatever RBA is able to output would be a truly positive alert. So research.splunk.com is a place where you can find the content that is already RBA ready. So I've taken some screenshots for a particular rule. So this is a Azure AD privilege role assigned security rule. So this page or this website will help us with the SPLs as well. The SPL is the query that we need to run on top of the data. So the query is available, RBA information. So Splunk has already determined what would be the impact and what would be the detection confidence for this particular rule, and it is giving us all these details. And then it also gives us the different annotations. So not just MITRE, it gives us NIST, CIS 20, and it also gives us vulnerability information as well. So it's a location where I mean it's a place that, or it's a library that will give us a lot of details that would solve a lot of your problems, right? And as the methodology says, RBA really needs to be designed and implemented. So it's not one click or simple, copy paste enable kind of a thing. RBA really needs to be thought through, regardless of the tool being used. In Splunk provides the methodology and the framework, the guidelines of how we should go about designing and implementing. So what they say is use this algorithm to calculate the base risk score. So confidence into impact will be your base risk score for the rules. So it gives us the scoring strategy using that algorithm. So basically, we list down all the rules here. We list down all the confidence. We do the calculation and we identify the risk score. So we do this exercise and we also identify the risk factors. So executive users, important assets, critical assets in the environment. We identify all of them, and then we see what kind of criteria needs to be set for it, whether it is a match criteria or whether it is, there are different options available. So whether if it's a direct match or if it's a regex match, etc., or if it contains a particular term, or if this term is available in the results, etc. So all of those kinds of conditions can be set in risk factors. So we identify all of these risk factors and we decide, what needs to be done when there is a matching condition, whether the risk score needs to be increased or decreased, etc. So all of this needs to go into the plan. We complete this plan at stage 2 and implement this in the RBA implementation methodology. So with that, we come to come almost to the end of this webinar. So if you are interested to try, Splunk is currently offering, particularly IBM QRadar users and other SIEM users, people who want to migrate, customers who want to migrate, an incentive packet that either includes package discount for up to a year, of the cost of Splunk solution and migration assistance, and then training for, seamless transition. So it also gives you some education credits. So 1 year of free Splunk Enterprise and security with migration services and enough credits to train 2 administrators. So Splunk offers both the solution and the training. So it's a very interesting offer. So if you're interested to try, please let us know. So what have we covered today? We talked about alert fatigue, the most important challenge for SOC today, and how RBA is the knight in the shining armor, how RBA comes to the rescue, how RBA can be implemented to alleviate that problem, and how Splunk differs from the other SIEMs when it comes to RBA, right? And then we also saw that promo. If you're not already using Splunk, please make use of that promo. All right, time for questions. So if you all have any questions, please let us know. So I see some questions already in the chat. How can risk-based alerting be used to detect and respond to advanced threat? So risk-based alerting, as I covered, can be used. I mean, risk-based alerting covers only the detection part. The response part is either manual response or an automated response through SOAR. So risk-based alerting can take all of these individual events and then combine these individual events into notable with context, right? How to choose the dynamic score by using RBI if you want to add multiple logics into it, whether it supports. Yes, we can. So you can add multiple logics to the risk factor. So you can add more than one condition for a user. So yes, that's possible. So the risk factor is the answer. So risk factor is the customization that you're looking for.
Yeah, thank you. Can you just show if you have a minute on that?
Sure.
Thank you.
So this is, I mean, the name is admin user. So if you come down, you have conditions. So you have one condition, user category matching. So we can select is equal to, not equal to, match regex, etc. So these are all the different conditions that you can select. If you want to add another condition, you can mention that condition here. It allows you to add as many conditions as you want to the risk factors. Okay, so if all of these condition matches, the factor that would be applied is all, sorry, not all, if any of these condition matches, the factor that would be applied is this one.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, how can machine learning be used to enhance risk-based alerting? Okay, how can machine learning be used to enhance risk-based alerting in Splunk Enterprise? So machine learning, we'll have to use the MLTK toolkit to create our own model. So we can definitely do some machine learning. So we can configure the model to look into the risk index to learn the patterns and then do something like an outlier detection or an anomaly detection, etc. So yes, can definitely do some level of machine learning on all the risk events that is being detected and convert that into a notable event. Is there any hiring for SOC analyst or training in Positka? Yes, there is, and we'll make sure that someone reaches out to you, Sayed Ayan.
And you talk about the last time that last, I think the slide that for two courses, like, and it would be on $100, something like that. So what is
No,
that?
no, $100K. So if if you're looking to, if you're already an existing SIEM user of QRadar or any other vendor, and if you're looking to migrate to Splunk, Splunk provides a package. So let me flash that slide again. So Splunk is offering new customers a package who are migrating from QRadar. So it would cover the cost of the Splunk solution for up to a year. We'll also provide migration assistance, and we'll provide training resources as well. So we'll provide enough credits. So once you purchase Splunk, it will come as a package with enough credits to train up to 2 administrators. So if you're interested, please reach out to Susan@positka.com with your query, and someone from our side will get in touch with you with the details that you're looking for.
Okay, sure.
So there's a question about I'm using free version of Splunk Enterprise. Can I implement RBA in that, or is it paid? Technically, yes, you can. So there, if you visit, sorry, let me go back here. So if you visit this website, splunk.github.io/RBA, information is available here that you can take and build your own RBA. But in Splunk, RBA comes as a pre-built package as a part of enterprise security. That's not a freely available app. It's a premium app, which means you need to purchase a subscription. Only then you get that. So if you want to try and do something on your own, please visit this website, splunk.github.io/RBA, and you'll be able to get some information there with which you'll be able to get started with your own version of RBA. Okay. I don't see any more questions in the chat. I
I
think,
mean, the last questions, maybe it's out of the context. So, is Positka is a partner of Splunk or it's something like that?
yes, we are Splunk partners. We operate in the across the globe actually. So
Okay.
yes, we are Splunk partners based out of UK and Singapore and India. So we are located in these 3 locations.
Okay. Okay. Got it. One last question, Slow. The RBA, like if you want to use some kind of a dashboard, is it possible to portray these things in Dashboard Studio as well, using Dashboard Studio?
Yes, it is, right? So the dashboard that I showcase, the risk analysis dashboard that I showcase, is already based on Dashboard Studio. If you want, you can clone that dashboard. So if you go into the dashboard sections of Splunk, you'll be able to see that listed. So you can take that dashboard and clone it and convert it, add those panels to it and modify it as per your need.
And one more last, like the multi-selection option. So is it there like in the dashboard? I saw it. So the multi-selection option, whether it has the panel effects or it's like I'm not able to use that studio properly on that. So his multi-selection option is there.
Sorry, I don't get the question. What do you mean by multi-selection? You mean
Uh,
the conditions? Are you talking about the
Yeah.
RBA
Uh,
conditions?
let's say the single drop down came in dynamically, and if you'll choose the multiple dynamic options came in, and I just need to select on the Dashboard Studio by using the RBA. Is it possible that feature?
Sorry, I don't quite understand the question. So I understand that you have a dashboard studio, you have a drop down, and you want to do multi-select. So there is an input that, so you shouldn't really be using the drop down input. So there is a multi-select input that you need to use to select multiple options.
Yeah, I mean, so the multi-selection options, whether it will like affect to that particular panels, because I'm getting some trouble on that, so that's why I'm just asking.
Yes, yes, you can. So you'll have to use something called the tokens. So you have to use the tokens within your SPLs in the panels. So the panels will have SPLs, right? So you set up a token, you populate the token so that your panels use that token. So whatever input you select will be passed to that token, like a variable thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
will you
I
pass to
passed
the
that.
variable?
Yeah, I
Mm.
passed that. So the prefix and suffix, like that part, I'm not able to do that. So the prefix, like if we choose multiple stuff, like multiple variables, like multiple options. So in that case, dynamically put supposed to put that like or and all stuff in just like in classic. So I'm not able to find out in the advanced like the dashboard studio.
Okay, okay.
Uh,
Um, uh, I mean, I need to understand your requirement more. So I think the best thing we can do is have someone from our side reach out to you. Or if you are already an existing Splunk customer and if you have ODS credits, then I would suggest you to raise an on-demand case. So someone from the on-demand team would definitely be able to help you with that.
yeah, the reason being I asked because he's a partner of Splunk, so that's why I just asked.
Yeah, I can, but I'll have to look into the details of your requirement. I'm not quite able to understand what you're trying to achieve. So if I am able to understand what you're trying to achieve, I might be able to help you better.
Yeah, no worries. I'll just reach out offline. Maybe
Mhm.
if you can give some contact number so that I can reach out to you. Uh, of course, sometime.
Yeah, please put your contact information in the chat and someone from our side will get in touch with you. All right, then we've come to the end of this session. Thank you all for joining. I hope the information I provided was helpful. See you in the next one. Thank you. Have a nice rest of the day.